Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dan Cohen with Uncaptured Media, broadcasting to you from Uncaptured Media headquarters, deep in the under the crust of the earth, in an undisclosed location in Washington D.C., the capital of the empire. Um, Uncaptured Media is a project of myself and a few collaborators, and I created it in order to have my own platform dedicated to remaining, as the title maybe implies, uncaptured psychologically, physically, spiritually, mentally from um, the psyops, the propaganda constructs that divide us and turn people against one another, whether on the left or the right, or where your political persuasion is. And I think that it's very important to talk about the discussion that I'm going to have today is with my colleague and collaborator Kim Ives of Haiti Liberté, who I'll be bringing in just a minute, and and we have recently released a documentary about Haiti called Haiti Intervention versus Revolution, which you can find on the Uncaptured Media YouTube channel and elsewhere. I need to make sure it's uploaded to all the channels. So thanks a lot, everyone, for joining on this. Here in DC, it's Thursday afternoon, so wherever you're joining from. Um, so I'm gonna bring Kim in. Hey, Kim, can you hear me? You with me?
I'm with you. I hear you.
Excellent. Okay, we got you. So thanks, Kim, for sitting down with me. We have a lot to discuss, and we're I'll say we're proud of the documentary we recently put out, which I guess is, well, I don't know, what is it? Your fifth documentary or something about Haiti, and my, I guess, I don't know. It depends. I guess it depends how you count, because we did another Vision together, which we released in 2022, and that was
Hmm.
3 episodes. So if you call that, okay, we could say that was one documentary. Then we did another piece for Redacted, which is,
Right.
we call it, between ourselves, we call it, the de facto fourth episode of Another Vision, and then the
Right.
most recent one is um, Intervention versus Revolution, which is essentially like a fifth episode. So, but Kim has been working in Haiti for many years. He's devoted his life to it. And if for any New York City residents or Jersey, if you're in the area, if you happen to be in New York City this week, actually, you can catch the first film that Kim was involved in, which is a groundbreaking film at the time called Bitter Cane, which went on to win second prize at Cannes Film Festival, and is a very much a picture of neoliberalism, the neoliberal model, and it's kind of unthinkable to win a major award like that for an anti-imperialist film, but that sort of just shows the kind of cultural hegemony and the cultural takeover of all the institutions that we've seen by the deep state, if you will.
Yeah. I should say that, yeah, it wasn't actually the first film. It was actually about the third. Did a slideshow in two smaller films, more sort of agitprop films before Bitter Cane. But Bitter Cane was the big enchilada. And then after that, over the years, between, I could say, Bitter Cane and Another Vision, which is about 40 years, did about uh, 5 or 6 other films, largely in conjunction with the collective Crowing Rooster Arts. Resistance was one of them. Killing the Dream, which was shown nationally on PBS to great acclaim in '92. Um, but really, I think that Bitter Cane and Another Vision sort of bookend the process that we've seen over the past 40 years in Haiti, which we'll be talking about today.
Absolutely. So it's been a real honor for me to work with Kim and Haiti Liberté, the Haitian outlet for which he's the English language editor. And I started working with Kim in 2021 after I interviewed him. Um, I was at the time working for Mint Press News, and I interviewed him about the assassination of the president, Jovenel Moise, trying to understand what was going on there. Kim being one of the very, very, very few people who could give a synopsis of what the situation was, why the president was killed, who might have been behind it, and from there, I basically jumped in to the deep end with Kim and headed to Haiti. I've been there. I guess I've been there five or I think five times or maybe six times. I'm not sure since then, and in which we've made these documentaries. So, but first, Kim and I actually returned recently from a trip to Iran. We were there for the Sob Film Festival, Media Festival, which was a very interesting event, not only for the event itself, but on the day after we arrived, um, the was the unfortunate and tragic helicopter crash, which killed the president, Raisi, the foreign minister, and a number of others. And so we thought we'd just kind of talk about our experience in Iran a little bit before we dive into the Haiti material. So I don't know, Kim, do you want to? What were your impressions? What takeaways did you have from that trip?
What was really interesting to see Iran after having only known it through the prism of U.S. disinformation and ideological vilification, which is just really rich. And I really appreciated sort of the wry irony that seems to permeate every Iranian, uh, I guess, after all these decades of sanctions. They have almost resigned sense of humor towards their state, but nonetheless have done wonderful things. The sort of it reminded me really of a mix of Cuba and Haiti. Cuba for the sort of persistent perseverance of developing, but in a kind of a discount way, if you will, because they're under sanctions. But at the same time, just a sort of improvisation everywhere, and that's Haiti. It's always improvising, always finding a way to manage with very little. And but yeah, I was very impressed, and also, of course, the richness, the antiquity that just permeates everything there. There was one place we went up to called uh, Dar Darfur. I forget the name of it, but it was a beautiful mountain area. There's sort of these mountains right to the south or north of uh, Tehran, which have this lovely, almost sort of Greenwich Village in the mountains with lights and candies and people and tourists, and it was you really saw how the Iranians know how to live. And anyway, but it was I was really edified to see their Islamic side and understand it a little better through our talks with a number of the people at the festival, and just to see how efficient and I could say polite they were in everything they do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was asleep. By the time we left, I still hadn't even adjusted to the jet lag. So I was on very, very few. I was on. I was on. I was just short on sleep basically the whole time. And so when Kim went there, unfortunately, I took a nap. But I went to another kind of cafe that was extremely beautiful in the neighborhood. And because of the death of President Raisi, a lot of the plans were kind of thrown off. So we ended up spending more time in the hotel than I think a lot of us, sort of would have liked or maybe imagined. But nonetheless, it was, we met a lot of great people, people who I'd interacted with on social media, on Twitter, but had never met in person. It was nice to be able to break bread with them. Um, so we arrived late at night, I believe on Saturday, very, very late night, 1 or 2 in the morning. We didn't, get to our hotel until then. And then the next day, we actually went to the Grand Bazaar, the central main market, to buy some gifts for our families. And while we were in the market, actually, a few of the vendors started, uh, they were extremely friendly to us because we were Americans. And, oh, you're from America, wow, wow, wow. And they started actually celebrating the death of the president. And we didn't know, what they were talking about. At that point, it was just a rumor. I guess the news had just come out that there was a crash, and I think the official wording was a hard landing. And so there were rumors that the president and people around him were dead. And a few of these people that we spoke to, these vendors, these merchants, were celebrating and trying to give us candies and chocolates and this kind of thing. And I didn't really grasp, why are they just hoping that Raisi is dead? What is I didn't we hadn't heard the rumor yet. We hadn't heard the breaking news. And so it wasn't until we were in the car heading back towards our hotel a few minutes later that we got word that the president had been involved in a helicopter crash. We went to the funeral for the public procession for President Raisi. And that was actually, I put out a short video on my X account, and I need to finish the other one. But everything we saw, of course, there were tens of thousands of people publicly mourning, and all kinds of people, religious, more secular, people who supported Raisi, people who didn't support Raisi, but they were just sad, of course, about the death of the president because they're patriots, regardless of what they think about his individual policies or his administration's policies. So it was very, very interesting to see that massive display, but the contrast between, of course, not everyone is going, to be is not going to think in that same way. And what we saw was really, you saw this, comprador kind of international business, like the importer exporter class that wants to be tied to the US, wants to be tied to the West, to the dollar. They are the ones who are celebrating the president's death and handing out candies and love us because we're Americans. Oh, the one guy that I ended up buying a rug from, was telling us that Sean Penn and Angelina Jolie had been in there, as if I'm supposed
Tom Brokaw.
Tom Brokaw, right? As if I'm supposed to like relate to that. These are like people I basically despise. So, you can see kind of their mentality that they want to be part of the West. They imbibe the cultural imperialism. They believe in the kind of cult of celebrity worship that pervades so much of the United States. And you can see how powerful that is, how it's exported around the world, and it really creates and sustains divisions within countries that the U.S. is seeking to target. And that was a perfect example of it. I saw a similar sort of dynamic in Cuba. I was in Cuba in March, and in the old city of Havana, which is a very touristic area, we talked to different artists, some of whom were, there was an artist, there was a bookseller, and this bookseller sold all kinds of revolutionary literature, rare books, and had all kinds of posters from decades past and of anti-imperialist struggles all over the world, and he was completely anti-government. And so it's very ironic, but you could see how this class of people that sells to the foreigners, that sells their wares, and you can see how this same class dynamic that we saw in Iran played out in Cuba too, where the masses support maintaining their sovereignty, defending their sovereignty, getting rid of the blockade, or finding ways to work around it and develop their own economy despite the blockade from the United States. And whereas this kind of small minority of that certain class is just totally ideologically aligned with the empire. So this is a phenomenon that you see again and again and again.
Right. And which speaks to me, to some extent, the importance of understanding the diversity of the anti-imperialist movement worldwide, because I feel what happens in the U.S. a lot is a sort of fetishization or limiting that it has to look like Cuba, like Venezuela, maybe Nicaragua. But it was interesting in Iran that same day we went to the Grand Bazaar, we went to the former U.S. Embassy, which has now been redubbed the U.S. Den of Espionage, and is a very beautifully done museum. I mean, the art that you see all over Iran is quite extraordinary, but very trenchant, very strong anti-imperialist message and art and declarations. They've done research into all the shredded. They reassembled a lot of the documents which had been shredded in the final hours of the embassy's functioning before they took most of the staff hostage. And so that has been compiled into books, which they're selling there. Not a hard sell, but they say it'd be really nice if you buy one of these, and everything there is very cheap. $6, $10. They're very. It's a good place for deals, but it brought home to me how, even though they're not socialists, communists, but they have an Islamist outlook, outlook. But the anti-imperialism in their affinity and identification with the, I could say, multipolar brick world that is emerging is very strong, and it's very admirable. Really, I'm sure I would have a lot of differences with the program of the Islamic government. I haven't studied it in depth, but nonetheless, their anti-imperialism is different, but as strong, I could say, as that we see in maybe the cases we know better, like Cuba and Venezuela.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's incredibly strong in part, I think, also because it's rooted in class consciousness, but also in faith, which is very strong. I mean, when you think your actions are not only about this world, but another world, it's pretty hard to break someone like that. And actually, I remember I watched a documentary about I think it was an Israeli documentary about the end of the Shah's regime, and there was a former Mossad guy or who talked about they were just firing at these student demonstrators, and that didn't stop them. And he said, like, at that point, we knew it was over. So it's just it's such a fervent revolutionary ideology that nothing could really stop it, and that still exists despite so many setbacks. And then one of the other things we saw was, despite the death of Raisi, which of course is very tragic and people were sad, there was a lot of optimism. People had revolutionary optimism, and I think that's in total contrast to the sort of liberal nihilism that is so pervasive in the West, particularly at this moment, where people are sort of just resigned to, they hate both political parties. They don't see any kind of alternative. They think things are just going to get worse and worse. And in many ways, yes, things are going are getting worse and will get worse in the United States. But you have to look bigger picture, and I think that was a very interesting concept. You would think that Iran, which is under all these horrible sanctions and has been suffocated and in so many ways, they are optimistic about the future. And I think it really kind of speaks to the way the Western-led order is going, and the way that the rest of the world is going. And it's not even that Iran is just simply embracing BRICS and saying to hell with the West. Iran still wants to maintain good relations with Europe and is looking to have good relations with the United States. We spoke to in the street. We spoke to a former ambassador to Nigeria. We spoke to other people, and they, talked about we're not just simply going along with Russia and China as if we're hitching our wagon to them. We want to have good relations with countries all over the world, with the West and the East. And they spoke about Iranian relations with Italy, which is something I didn't know a whole lot about, but apparently there's some stronger relations there. So it was a very interesting moment. And as sad as I am and about the death of the president, it was a very sort of key moment to be there. It gave us a lot of insight that I don't think we would have been able to see otherwise.
Right. And there are two things I want to pick up on what you just said. One is just I could say, level of education of the people, which again, like Cuba and Haiti, is so valued, but they were so articulate and so worldly, interesting. I mean, the interviews that you're going to publish in this piece were great. I mean, so many people speak English as well. And it's taught, and they speak English fluently, even though they've never been to an English-speaking country. But their English is perfect. And so one was just the quality of education and culture that you see in Iranians. But two is that faith question, and in a way we can maybe use this to transition over to Haiti, which is, like you said from that documentary, when they saw these people were ready to die for their belief, they knew it was over. And that's really, to me, what we're seeing in Haiti today. Jimmy Cherizier, Barbecue, the head of this Vive Ensemble Alliance.
Hey Kim, hold on. Why don't actually we show the short video that we put together? It's less than 2 minutes long, and then people
from
can
Iran?
actually see. Yeah,
that sounds good.
Why don't we show that? Okay, so bear with me 1 second. I'm gonna. There we go. Okay. So this is just with the English interviews that we did at the funeral, and keep in mind, this is in Tehran, the capital. So of course there's going to be a more international, cosmopolitan vibe there, so
sensibility.
Sensibility, exactly. And but you'll get a sense. You can see people that are kind of, even here. I mean, we can see. I don't know if maybe people can't see my. I don't know if people can see. Maybe can't see my cursor, but kind of on the right, you see guys that are, or in the middle, you see men that are dressed a bit more secular. On the left, and you see men who are dressed in a very religious way. So that was one of the things that I don't want to say surprised to me, but was very interesting. You see the kind of breadth of the kinds of people that are patriotic. This is not merely a religious display of mourning, though it comes through in a religious sort of language and context. But it was a patriotic, a nationalist thing. So here we'll just show this.
It's hard to express. In my heart, I'm sad. It's very sudden, and I can't put it to words. I'm deeply sad.
Words cannot describe I cannot find the words to. I don't know just what to say. It's very shocking and very devastating. You know, uh, I wasn't like that much uh, deadly fan of the president, but he was my president, and I know that he had ups and downs, but it's very shocking, and I care about my country and what happens to it, and yeah, this is the least I can do.
Of course, it is very sad demise, and you see the people they are feeling so sad, and it is very hard to bear it. Not only for the people with you are already political professional, but for the ordinary people, for all the people, all the nation of the Iran.
So
Yeah. Yeah, you get
yeah,
a taste of it there. Yeah, but I just think we should say, Dan, the video doesn't quite capture just the power of thousands of people thumping their
Right.
chest at the same time. I mean, that noise was quite extraordinary, and the grief was really palpable in the air everywhere. I mean, you showed a few snippets, but so many people were sobbing and crying.
Right, and you couldn't see, of course, the size of the crowd. We didn't have a drone or anything, but if you look at
Yeah.
the footage that was aired, I mean, it was just endless. The crowds,
Yeah.
tens of thousands of people easily. So it was just an enormous outpouring of grief. And you saw the young lady. She told us she's a pretty secular person, and she said, I wasn't really a fan of Raisi, but she's sad for her country. So as I think most people would be if there was a helicopter crash that wiped out your president. So sorry to interrupt you. You were in the middle of a transition. But I mean, so we're gonna get to discussing the what's going on in Haiti, um, of course, which is the primary uh, point of discussion of this live stream. But I thought, Kim, it would be kind of fun first if you can talk about who is the White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, who was your protege. So if you can just kind of tell us who is Karine Jean-Pierre, who was the Karine Jean-Pierre that you knew, and how did she get to the point that she is, what she is today?
Well, Karine actually approached me. She was a student, graduate student at Columbia University, and had seen Bitter Cane, the film that, as you mentioned, is playing at Brooklyn Academy of Music until June 20th. I encourage any viewers to go see it if they're in New York. It's beautiful screening, and an extraordinary restoration, which has been done from the original 16 millimeter negatives by Indie Collect, outfit which restores films from the 1980s. So the film, she'd seen the film, she'd seen Bitter Cane, and so she sought me out and interviewed me for her, I think, review, or she was writing a paper on it, or on Haiti, or something like that. So with that, we kind of became friendly, and she was interested. At the time, I was working a lot at the International Action Center, which was sort of run by the Workers' World Party in New York, and on 14th Street, and she would come by there. We'd go up to the little Warren of mini video decks there, and look at footage and do things along those lines. And we had a program on WBAI at the time, Haiti, The Struggle Continues, which she was sort of recruited and formed to help write the news each week, which we presented at the beginning of the show. And so I came to know her in the course of doing that, and, you know, became quite close with her. In fact, when we did event, I think in 2005 at the New York Institute of Technology, I forget the exact name, downtown Brooklyn. It was sort of a combination of Haiti Progrès, where I was working at the time, and the Lavalas movement. We had speakers like Kevin Pina, now who's gone over to the Empire, and she helped organize. We did on the when Aristide was kidnapped by U.S. SEAL team in 2004, removed from power at the peak of that 2004 coup. We did a big rally with Maxine Waters and Amy Goodman and Bernard White and a lot, Ramsey Clark, all sorts of people at Brooklyn College, and she and I co-chaired that meeting. So, you know, we were working quite closely with her. But she began working more and more as a campaign consultant. They were disastrous, each one of the campaigns, not only disastrous, but from the point of view of who she selected to be her client, but I guess also the way she conducted the campaign. Her first one was Anthony Weiner. I don't need to mention how spectacularly he crashed. His second one was John Edwards. Again, another rather spectacular crash. And the last one, I believe, was O'Malley, who was, as people may recall, although he was fairly obscure, the sort of third contender in the Hillary Obama contest back in the day. So in any case, at that time, when Obama came in, she'd been working with one of the unions, Andy Stein, I think, and was tagged. When O'Malley dropped out, I think she was picked up to run part of the Obama campaign in the South, and ended up becoming a labor liaison with the Labor Department to the White House. And somehow, as I learned in one of my later discussions with her, she was charmed in some way by Obama. I'm not sure exactly how, because at one of the meetings I said, "What are you doing? You know, this guy is just, you know, droning and killing and executing people." You know, and she, yeah. She said, "That's not good, but you know, give it time," something like that. But in any case, there was always this sort of almost detached and I could say pragmatic vision that she had. So, you know, I always had an inkling that she might bolt, you know, and not be a successful recruitment, as it were. But anyway, when she went into the job of being she was, of course, deputy press secretary at first, and when she was sort of hired, I got calls from like the Advocate, you know, saying, "Oh, you know, what do you know about Karine Jean-Pierre?" Because at that point she had come out, which I was sort of surprised with, because she was always kind of asking questions that suggested to me the opposite. But when she came out, you know, I said, okay, so she's really going into the whole game now, and you know, figured she was pretty much lost. I began to feel that when she went to Move On first, which I know was just sort of a nursery, if you will, for the Democratic Party, and you could see her get on the same treadmill that we see their people getting on. So anyway, yeah, I started to have real misgivings, especially in some of the last meetings I had with her when she'd gotten into her uh, uh, seat of power, if you will. And, anyway, we can see now that, unfortunately, that, a couple of times I've thought to write her a text or, some sort of note to just say, what are you doing? Why don't you resign spectacularly in protest against this? But then I say, let the chips fall how they will. So anyway, that's what I can say about Karine, which was pretty big disappointment.
Yeah, and she went on to become the first LGBTQI2S plus White House press secretary to, not only all of that, to shill for a U.S. proxy invasion of her
Her
nation
parents,
of origin, her family's nation of origin, Haiti. So
right. Yeah, she was born in
incredible.
Martinique. Yeah, so she never was actually born in Haiti, but her parents are Haitian. Yeah.
Okay. So, it's clearly a tremendous honor for Karine. And I think, if and when these mercenaries that we're going to be talking about land in Port-au-Prince, it'll be just a huge step up for people of queer people of color, thanks to the effort of Karine Jean-Pierre.
Dripping with irony, he said. But yeah, no, it was rather, I don't know, incongruous to see her arriving at that meeting at that state dinner at the White House with Kenyan President William Ruto on May 23rd. And as she goes into the meeting, everybody's commenting on her dress. Oh yes, a friend made it. She says, sort of posing for the cameras. And I thought, oh my God, that is the level of discussion going into the room, not a statement about Haiti. I mean, even if it's the wrong thing, which of course it would be. Anyway, that's
right.
where we've gotten to.
So with all of that said, now we've sort of transitioned to Haiti, the main subject at hand, and I want to shout out Chris Shipley. Thank you for the contribution. We very much appreciate that. Super chats, or you can support us on through Super Chat if you're on YouTube, if you're watching through there, if you're on Twitter or wherever else you might be watching. You can support our work, which is totally we survive off of support from the public, from small donors. So we have patreon.com. This is my Patreon and my Buy Me a Coffee, but my work helps Haiti Liberté. This will go to Haiti Liberté as well, which is which very, very much needs your help. Kim and Bethany Dupont of Haiti Liberté. These guys are old school. They run a print newspaper out of a small office in Brooklyn, New York City. They don't have some young whippersnapper managing their social media and doing Patreon and all these things. So they are doing print newspapers, which I have is sort of a dying thing, but I think actually needs to be brought back. It needs to be maintained and brought back. So,
well, when you're all shut down on social media by the powers that are, people will suddenly be saying, "Good thing you held on to those buggies."
It's absolutely true. It's true. I don't think it's going the way of the dinosaur. It's something that actually we need to hold on to. So, supporting our work not only will help us make these documentaries and do these reports and live streams, but also keep the newspapers being printed. If you're anywhere in Brooklyn, or especially in Little Haiti, or around anywhere where there's Haitians, you may find a copy of Haiti Liberté, and these are also delivered by plane to Haiti. That's the newspaper hanging behind Kim's head there. So, so with all of that said, and again, you can go to patreon.com/uncaptured or buymeacoffee.com/uncaptured. So with all of that said, yeah, we want to talk about what is going on in Haiti right now. And I think before we sort of get into the documentary that we released, which tells kind of the backstory to the current moment, we want to kind of give an update on the current moment as it is. So I don't know, maybe I'll let you take that away, Kim.
Okay, yeah. So I was starting in that aborted transition that I was doing before. I was talking about you were saying about how when they saw the dedication of the anti-Shah fighters, they knew it was all over. But really, that's the same. I thought about the other day. The key figure who we're going to be talking about in this is a guy, Jimmy Cherizier Barbecue, who heads a thing called the Vive Ensemble Coalition, Live Together Coalition, which is a merger of the criminal gangs of Haiti and the anti-crime vigilance brigades, they're called, that he headed, that Cherizier headed, who came together to basically push out Ariel Henry on February 29th, after he had gone to Kenya to sign a totally worthless agreement because he has no standing. He's not elected in any way. In fact, he didn't even sign it. It was the head of his, sorry about that. I got to shut that down. So he ended up becoming a very central figure in this removal of Ariel Henry from power. And he was making a statement the other day, that was Monday, and he said, we're not going to jail. This is life or death. We're either winning our freedom or we're going to die, and we're going to, die fighting. And I said at that point, that is the most critical thing. And I've known people who are special forces soldiers in the first intervention in '94 into Haiti, and also in the 2004 intervention. And, they said there's nothing more important than the attitude, people who are willing to die for their struggle, for their cause. And so really that's what we're seeing on the ground in Haiti, this movement of the armed masses, we could say, of these armed neighborhood committees. And in the face of it, the U.S. has ended up really flailing. They ran to Jamaica, Kingston, assembled their principal puppets from CARICOM, above all Ali from Guyana, Jamaica, and Barbados in sort of that configuration. And they selected the entire corrupt Haitian political class to put them all together in a council of 9 people, 7 of them voting. There's 2 sort of ornaments in it, the religious sector and the civil society sector. They always have civil society, right? What is that? But the political class, basically going all the way from the right, including Ariel Henry's coalition, to the left, including the Lavalas family. And the condition on which they all had to participate in this was on the basis of their accepting the U.S. organized foreign military intervention of the force led by Kenya, or nominally led by Kenya, in fact, led by the U.S., but with Kenya as the sort of blackface in front, which also includes Benin, Chad, Barbados, Bahamas, and Jamaica are contributing troops. Bangladesh is in the mix. Spain, I heard, also said they would send some troops, a few other countries. But essentially, they're coming in to put in a U.S.-centric government And to do that, they had to put in a U.S.-centric prime minister. In Haiti, the president is not really the executive power; it's the prime minister who's the president theoretically chooses. In this case, it was the Presidential Council of 9 members who chose a fellow called Gary Coney, who really, if you are at all familiar with Haiti, you will know the name Marc Bazin, who was the original U.S. puppet. And when the U.S. chooses their puppets, they're inevitably, almost always, they always have been, I shouldn't say always are, these iffy officials of the international financial institution. They pick them out of the World Bank, IMF, or the UN. In this case, Gary Coney came out of the UN. He was part of UNICEF, Latin American and Caribbean Division. Marc Bazin, who was sort of his predecessor 3 decades ago in the late 80s, 4 decades ago now, it was the one they put up against Aristide, and Aristide beat him handily. So now Gary Coney, they brought him in much like Marc Bazin was brought in 1983 or 4 to sort of reform the Duvalier regime, and Duvalier quickly kicked him out. Same thing for Coney. He was brought in to sort of reform the Michel Martelly, who was a neo-Duvalierist president in 2011. He only lasted 5 months and they kicked him out. But now they've brought him back, and he's the quintessential U.S. docile puppet. And so he will, in principle, with these Kenyan troops, hold an election, which will then elect a pro-U.S. In Haiti, they don't call them elections, they call them selections. They put an S at the front. And they'll put in this U.S. puppet, who then, and this is key to understand, will accept or sign on the bottom line of a thing called the Global Fragility Act, which is passed under Trump, total bipartisan support. And this is the U.S. response to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, to the rise of the BRICS, to the rise of Chinese and Russian and BRIC power worldwide. They are going to have this president sign on this. And what that will do is now U.S. troops will be stationed in Haiti, and Haiti will be put on a lifeline of U.S. surplus food support, excess rice, wheat, corn, things we can't sell anywhere else in the U.S. We end up sending it to Haiti. Now the people don't have to make food. Well, that's a good thing, because they can go work in the factories for $5 a day, because they're going to need that, because we're going to war with China. All our Chinese factories are going offline. So we need really millions of workers. And Haiti is one of the principal places we need to make all our electronics and our clothing, etc. And plus the fact that Haiti is one of the last of 11 countries, if you don't count the Vatican, in the world that recognize Taiwan as the real China. Even though everybody else in the world, the other 193 nations, understand that Taiwan is just part of China, including the U.S., but Haiti is one of only those 11, and there's only 2 that have a population of over 1 million. The rest of them are little micro states, Tuvalu, that sort of thing. So for these 2 reasons, the U.S. is very, very anxious to get those boots on the ground, but they can't do it like they did in 1915, and I'm winding up here, where U.S. Marines came in, took over, had a president elected, and then he invited them in. That was too ugly. It was too 20th century. Now they're doing it the more modern way. So we're going to use a neo-colony, even though they had a hard time finding the neo-colony to do it, because Jamaica and Canada and other countries all said no way. So the Kenyans agreed. They're getting a pretty penny. They haven't been able to get in there yet. They're a mess, but we'll get into that more.
Okay. So we basically have this new puppet regime that is totally beholden to U.S. plans for a foreign invasion of Haiti. This regime did not receive a single vote. There was no vote by the Haitian people. Simply anointed by the U.S., and they've now selected a prime minister who is, as you said, one of the most docile figures, and has already shown how willing he is to go basically along with U.S. plans in the aftermath of the 2010 earthquake. So now, so then we're basically going to go back. So we're going to show, basically what we're going to do is show some different selections from our documentary, from the most recent documentary, and essentially this was um, over a period of over 2 trips. In First one in August of 2023, and then the second one in February of 2024 this year. And and so it basically gives the background to the current moment, everything Kim just described, where now we're basically on hold, trying to where the U.S., the State Department is, and the Pentagon are trying to figure out how to get this foreign invasion into Haiti so they can start attacking the so-called gangs. And the main grouping of armed groups, is a much more neutral and accurate term. It's called Vivre Ensemble, which means live together in Creole. And essentially what Vivre Ensemble is a project. It's kind of the brainchild of Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier, the protagonist in our films, and the leading anti-imperialist figure in Haiti today. And as you'll, if you watched our film series Another Vision, you see throughout the series his goal, the way he sought to have a revolution, was to unite the different armed groups, some of them criminals that he was fighting against, and some of them anti-crime armed groups, basically neighborhood self-defense groups, which is what he was leading. And so there was the G9 Federation, which he led, and then there was what they call the G People, the JPEP alliance, which was a criminal alliance funded by oligarchs, armed by oligarchs, and was stronger in many ways because they had money coming in and bigger weapons and more ammunition, and so
Founded the
Cherizier,
day after the G9.
right. And
Yeah.
so in order to basically be a kind of a copycat,
Yeah.
so basically Cherizier could never really beat them, and all the time that he was fighting them, he was always very reticent to fight. You see that in the documentary. He would literally get down on one knee and publicly beg the groups to stop fighting and say, guys, let's stop doing this. The people in our neighborhoods are hurting. They're being killed. Their homes are being destroyed because of the fighting. And this doesn't benefit us at all. And, the best you're going to get out of, even if they defeat Cherizier and the G9 and kill them, is you're going to live on a pile of, you're going to be the king of a pile of burning garbage, is essentially what it is, because that's the condition that the U.S. keeps Haiti in. So Cherizier's argument is, let's stop fighting, let's turn our weapons against the ruling class who are paying us to kill each other and live in terrible conditions. And so finally, what happened as the U.S. bared down and organized this invasion and demonized Cherizier more, his argument started to resonate with different leaders who the JPEP, some of these guys in this kind of loose coalition were becoming strong enough and had enough money that they didn't necessarily need these oligarchs to continue to pay them. They could generate their own money, and they taxed the businesses in their area. So and they ran their own kidnapping rings, some of them, which would generate money while terrorizing the population. So Cherizier's whole ideology is to basically unite along the lines of class, and frankly, Kim and I and Bethany from Haiti Liberté, we were skeptical in a way that could ever work, that he was ever going to convince these criminal elements to stop committing crimes and to unite with him and to take on some kind of revolutionary project. But to this point, at least, he has been vindicated. And so it's to his credit that he has pulled this off to this point. So maybe let's start. I have to play these, I guess. All right, there we go. I'm going to pull the film up on the screen. Bear with me. And this is on YouTube. This is on this channel, Uncaptured Media. You can watch it for free. Maybe I think you have to maybe watch some ads, a couple of ads to view it. But you can, and I don't know what petition they want you to sign there. That is not ours. Okay, so please do not. I urge you, if you see that on the screen, do not sign any petition on our behalf. But please also like and share the video. Like and share this stream because it helps us beat suppression. So let's get into it. I think kind of the first part to show, this is essentially what we've explained right here, is the background, how the U.S. organized this invasion and has been seeking to organize it. But I'd say let's.
Mm-hmm. Just add one thing, and it is not a UN intervention. It has simply been blessed by the UN Security Council, but it's a purely US-backed intervention.
Right. So let's start here, which is where we see Cherizier meeting with his former enemy, I guess you could say, a guy named Toto Alexandre, who is from the next neighborhood over. Jimmy Cherizier, his neighborhood is called Lower Delma. It's basically roughly three streets off of this main road called Delma. So off of Delma, there's Delma 2, Delma 4, and Delma 6. That's his kind of territory, if you will. And the next neighborhood over to him, I guess to the east, I believe, is called Bel Air. And so
to the west.
To the west. Okay. So Toto is kind of the spokesman for Bel Air. He's not exactly the leader of the armed groups, but he is a spokesman for the neighborhood. So he carries a lot of clout. So if in our documentary, in Another Vision, you see we interviewed this guy Toto, and he was bad-mouthing barbecue and saying how he's delusional and he's out of his mind and the people don't want a revolution, and it was and so now you see he's very much changed his tune as they've made peace. So let's watch some of this. Cherizier and his former enemy, Marc-Andre Toto Alexandre, a spokesperson for the adjacent neighborhood of Bel Air, spoke to us about the need for and benefits of peace.
On a visité tout endroit dans Sisla avec population, avec monsieur Jimmy Cherizier, avec Jimmy Cherizier. OK, on a visité juste pour population en soi. Pour que la paix sont la paix tout bon.
Jodi an pa gen ni Genève, pa gen ni Berlin, pa gen ni GPEP. Jodi an gen vivre ensemble et j'entends tout expliquer là. Nous doit ça c'est n'a pas prendre comme nous ensemble, comment nous faire pour nous capable vivre ensemble.
Once enemies, these neighborhoods are now united.
Ça veut dire moi personnellement, m'te kan goumé face avec Jimmy Cherizier, nous vraiment goumé. Mais là on regarde le pas mener nous quel côté pas mener nous nulle part. Nous obligé font chita parler ensemble pour nous faire retarder. Retarder qui ça retarder? Nous obligé ouais côté nous aller, côté nous vle. Qui moun qui pas comprendre ça qu'a fait là. Qui moun qui ignorer ça qu'a fait là. Mais aujourd'hui bon Dieu mettez à une réalité là. Nous pas besoin de faire l'autre mot encore. Nous pas besoin de faire l'autre des encore. Nous obligés de connecter, nous penser à tête nous bien. Pour nous être tout le monde qui mouille sous conscience. La façon l'idée à utiliser nous. C'est des gens qui utiliser nous. Mais je ne dis pas, nous personnellement, tout le monde sort mourir, nous pas carré mettre vie.
Maybe I'll pause real quick. I mean, when he says certain people were using us, he is alluding to, it seems, the fact that oligarchs were paying those guys to fight. Paying not barbecue, but we're paying Toto Alexandre and the various guys in the GPEP to fight against barbecue. So they got to a point.
to be very specific, Bel Air is the fiefdom, we could say, of a guy called Jean Cateau. Cher-Ami is his name, who was a politician and a sort of a musical artist who did videos as Don Cateau. But Cher-Ami is his family name. His first name is spacing on it now, right for the moment. But his sort of backer is a guy called Dimitri Vorb, who, if you watch Another Vision, you will learn. Yeah, Antonio Cher-Ami, thank you. I knew it began with an A. And Dimitri Vorb is one of the oligarchs hugely suspected of being behind Jovenel Moïse's assassination, and it was at a bitter feud along with a guy called Reginald Boulos against Cherizier. So they were very much pumping Vorb via Cher-Ami, via Don Cateau, were pumping a lot of the funds into Bel Air. So, yeah.
Okay, so this is what he's what he's alluding to. He obviously doesn't go in depth, but so we'll continue on.
La vie, ça nous font, la vie c'est une pièce qui est important et toute bagaille dans le monde. Car la doit casser, mais vie on va besoin de pour mettre. Mais pendant ce temps nous font retarder, nous suivre, nous tendez l'autre monde qui a parlé dans ça et nous obligés de nous dire non, nous pas goumer encore. Si nous parlons de folie goumer, chaque temps nous garder tout le monde sortir mourir derrière nous pas goumer encore parce que monde sortir dans goumer. Il y en a l'autre qui cause monde sortir mourir. Et pour ça on a continué bataille, on a continué là, faut Ariel Henry quitter pays.
If an invasion occurs, Cherizier says. So there you go. Toto very much changed his discourse, and he's now united because they saw that fighting was just simply negative for the population. So, and then here Cherizier is going to continue. The people will rise up.
Peuple a dans la rue pour dire non avec abat occupation, abat toute force étrangère et que les arrivés pour États-Unis, la France, Canada, bah nous-mêmes haïtiens chance pour c'est nous qui décidons pour destin tête nous, pour destin pays nous. C'est peut-être ça en deux quartiers populaires aujourd'hui vent conscience là, vent la paix a soufflé et ça quand commence à triompher. Goumen nous va pour faire bouge ça mieux à virer côté parce que nous va goumen contre oligarque, nous va goumen contre assassin qui dans gouvernement et puis nous va goumen contre l'Occident qui pense le cabine imposer nous Ariel Henry qui sont sanguinaires, ont assassins qui participent dans la mort président Jovenel Moïse. Tout étranger qui a venu là il a fait même Jean ministre a fait en 2004 violer petits garçons, Jean soldat Uruguayen a fait violer petites filles, violer femmes. Il a fait même Jean Népalais il a porté choléra pour nous, côté 20 000 haïtiens mourir dans choléra, plus passer 500 000 autres infectés. L'ONU connaît ça L'ONU mène bon gens enquête, il connaît que c'est Népalais et qui quitté porter choléra. Qui ça fait? Yo pas jamais dédommager nous. Et yo refuse de reconnaître que c'est eux qui porté maladie en Haïti. Et si force étrangère yo t'a venu, si Ariel Henry yo t'a venu arrêter nous t'a content. Si force étrangère yo t'a venu et sécurité yo t'a metté pour qui permettre que monde circuler pour la vie reprendre, nous t'a content. Force étrangère yo venu pour venir consolider pouvoir oligarque. 5% monde qui contrôle 5% richesse paysan. Force étrangère yo venu pour venir consolider Ariel Henry parce que connaît participer à l'assassinat de Jovenel Moïse. Et seule façon pour le parler devant la justice pour ne pas arrêter, c'est mener force étrangère au vini et puis pour le faire élection pour y vider, pour le mettre moun par le livret, à ce moment-là pour le parler sur la justice. Et pour être ça dans le quartier populaire, au monde Bel-Air, Toto représente Bel-Air, moi représente force révolutionnaire, Genève en famille et Alliement et tout. Et je dis, pas ni Genève, pas ni GPEP. Je dis à vivre ensemble. N'importe quelle force étrangère là, si on connaît, pour venir entrer dans le quartier populaire, pour venir faire massacre, venir tirer, venir massacrer les gens, venir faire cadre Jacques, laisse à nous-mêmes dans le quartier populaire qui est sans dessaline dans nous, n'a campé, n'a gommé contre jusqu'à dernier bout de sang.
Okay. And it goes to an ad of Biden saying, "I'll cut the malarkey." Okay, Biden is not going to cut the malarkey. Let's just play. We're just going to talk through that ad. Good God. Okay. We're gonna just get right past that. What I should have done is play the play it natively from my computer rather than from YouTube where we have to watch these ads. But nonetheless, I mean, to me, that is an extremely powerful statement from Cherizier, saying that, for one thing, pointing out that, well, actually, no, I'm thinking of a statement that's going to come later, but, saying just directly, we're going to resist and the people are going to rise up. And he points out that, what happened with the last UN occupation that lasted for 15 years, and all the horrors that brought, and there was never any accountability, and it's going to be a same sort of thing. So there's not a lot of resistance to this in the West, in the Western media, in the anti-imperialist media, and for a number of reasons. But I mean, I think it's a very authentic picture that you see of people from the impoverished neighborhoods of Port-au-Prince coming together to resist imperialism, and that's something we should definitely support.
And if I can jump in and say,
Please.
some of the listeners may see a sort of a meme which has been circulated by elements of the ultra left of Haiti who don't like Cherizier to some extent because he undresses them for their own impotence. But it shows him with an American flag on him. We don't know the story, and one day I'll have to ask Cherizier. We'll have to ask Cherizier, what is the story behind that photo? He has, I believe, 7 siblings who mostly live in the U.S. Perhaps at one point when he was a young man, he took a picture with the American flag on him thinking he was going to the U.S. too or something. I don't know. But in short, this is a meme which they throw out there to say, he's a U.S. agent, which is absurd. I mean, it's a little bit like saying Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Haiti's founding father, because he was a French general at one point, that, therefore he was an agent of France. Well, he led the liberation of Haiti, the first independent nation of Latin America, the first Black republic, etc. So anyway, it's a stupid meme, but just so people don't get confused by that or by some comments which might appear in this the live stream's comments, saying, "Oh, well, how do you explain this picture of him with a flag on himself?"
Right. There are all kinds of,
That's the main one I've seen. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's the main one. A picture of
Yeah.
a barbecue from years and years ago. There's all, I think somebody said, "Oh, barbecue was under consideration." You can find him on WikiLeaks as like a tool of the State Department or something. And if you look up his name, Jimmy Cherizier, under WikiLeaks, you see that he was actually under consideration, went back when he was a police officer, to be for some training by the U.S. And so you have to be kind of a certain level of elite or whatever it is,
Caliber.
to be certain caliber to be under consideration. So that's more proof. But all of this is from years and years ago, before he became what he is today. Before, I mean, he used to be a police officer. He was in an anti-gang unit. They fought against criminals. And so
and he
again,
explained his enlightenment in
Right.
Another Vision. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. What exactly happened to him. So we're not going to get into here, but so maybe we'll go back to it. How can I? Okay. I think this is what we want, exactly this layout. Okay, so here's another clip. This is, I think what's most interesting about this is actually in Rue is at streets Rue Tirmas and Rue Saint Martin, which I mean, and keep in mind, this is back in August 2023, right before this whole Vive Ensemble coalition was officially announced to the world, but was being kind of consecrated at that time. And this was in an area that was that he had fought with the armed groups there. And so now he's able to go there and deliver this speech. So I think it's a strong statement, but it's also the relevance of where he is. So let's just watch this.
Which is Ambawozi, and you'll see the refugees from this battle in another vision too.
Timas et rue Saint-Martin, côté que, et logiquement, là, longtemps, était un territoire ennemi. Je dis, pas un territoire ennemi, parce que nous, les amis, nous faisons la paix entre nous. Longtemps, pas arriver là. Parce que, messieurs, ont tiré sur moi, moi-même, tout le monde a tiré sur eux, tout. Je dis, pas ça. Nous prenons sous responsabilité, nous, pour nous pas jamais goumer entre nous encore. Nous mettons tête nous ensemble pour nous goumer contre le système qui gagne jusqu'à ce que nous changions le pays, ça, jusqu'à ce que nous jouions bon genre de l'eau potable, nous jouions une caille pour nous aider, nous jouions l'école pour petites nous, nous jouions un métier pour petites nous apprendre à l'université. Tout autant l'État ça pas fait ça, nous-mêmes, nous continuons à mettre tête nous ensemble pour nous goumer contre eux. Mais jamais, il n'y a pas jamais Ritimas, Rue Saint-Martin, Belay, Delma 2, Delma 4, Delma 6, ça goume encore. Ça a fini. Nous faisons la paix pour nous goumer, pour nous changer le pays, ça.
Now you can't quite see in that frame, but you hear all that clapping. There are about 24 people who had gathered around who are all clapping at his speech. So it's not as if, he's just talking to the camera and there's no one there. All the people, people from that neighborhood, including guys that he had fought against, are all clapping. We don't want to fight anymore. We want to change the situation. So it's a very important moment. Now what we're seeing is these development projects that Cherizier has basically overseen and instituted in his own neighborhood. This is building a school, and this is not from money from some oligarch. This is from money gathered from the diaspora, Haitians who left their country and have become successful business owners, or they're just workers in the US and Canada and wherever else who support this project, mostly residents of the neighborhood who live abroad. And then this is also with the help of an NGO, as much as we're against NGOs, and particularly in Haiti, we've seen how horrible they've been, and basically they're just a big money laundering operation. But in this case, the hands together is kind of the exception to the rule. So let's watch this.
At the same time as they make peace, Cherizier and his community launch projects on their own with the help of the diaspora and an NGO.
America's beverage companies are working together to deliver more great tasting options with
absolute torture. Sorry about this. That is not part of the documentary.
Well, it's maybe a good juxtaposition, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now we learn to just do the video native. Okay, so I guess you can tell I've been watching workout videos. That's why I'm getting this ad. There we go. Oh, need the volume.
Et communautaire. Là, c'est pour qu'on construise un restaurant communautaire pour qui permette si moun qui fait plus bon moyen à partir des moyennes 7, tout si moun qui fait moyenne 7, 8, 9 pour nous encourager l'excellence, si moun ça a bien accès pour nous bailler on plat manger chaque jour.
Here they have built a swimming pool.
Et chaque vendredi, chaque week-end alors, vendredi, samedi, dimanche, n'a pris si moun qui fait plus bon moyen. Je vais dire ça déjà à partir de moyenne 7, 8. Si nous avons accès pour venir bien dans piscine dans 150 et que nous baillons manger et que pour jouer, nous baillons manger, nous baillons boire.
What the people really need now is food. Yo besoin manger.
Yeah.
So we have to get food for them.
I think so.
One of the key figures involved in both the peace accord and the community projects is Father Tom Hagen of Hands Together, an NGO that builds schools across the country.
My role wasn't that much. It was just kind of like a suggestion, because we've had a couple kind of truce before, and but interesting, not many people have even come to say, hey, this is a good thing. Nothing at all. And I wonder sometimes if it's just you have a suspicion that maybe the people want these gangs to be called bad people or bad gangs because they use them for different reasons, political reasons, whatever else. But I'm willing to stand up and say, hey, there's goodness in them, and I would bet my life on this guy. He's a good person. We're going to put more classes on the other side there too.
But the Henri regime in U.S. agents seek to discredit and upend the fragile peace accord between.
Okay, so maybe Kim, you can comment on that.
What Hagen is saying there is so key, and it really goes back to the old Goebbels dictum, lie, 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 and something always remains. And we see this not just in the general public, but even on the supposedly enlightened left, where people are just either they are part of this ultra left sort of lunatic fringe, Jafrique Haiti, Daoud Andre, those types who, are, make barbecue a kind of a villain of comic book proportions, or they don't say anything because they're afraid of the controversy. But that's really what Hagen's saying. He's saying, although they've been trying to make these truces and create peace and build the communities, nobody says anything about it. They're either, if they're not converted or convinced, they at least neutralized. And I think it's a very interesting observation he makes there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, without naming names, it's basically the left, including the experts on Haiti, have just said we don't want to deal with this. We don't want to touch it. And to me, this is the key thing. You have to deal with it. It's even if you don't absolutely agree with everything. It's like how are you going to oppose in 2003? How could you oppose U.S. invasion of Iraq without talking about Saddam Hussein? Even if not that Saddam Hussein was some good guy, or how can you oppose war in Syria without talking about Assad, or Libya without Gaddafi? They always take a figure to demonize when they're gonna have a war. It's always they reduce it to a single person, and in this case, that person is barbecue. So if you're gonna be a Haiti expert, or you're gonna talk about Haiti, and you can't talk about the guy that the Western media can't stop demonizing, then I think you're basically missing out. You're missing it. You're doing a disservice. And so that's what we, really try to take head on. And we've gotten a lot of flack for it, but I think, we're being vindicated as time goes on. And I think we'll be vindicated even more. And even if tomorrow, barbecue took a $1 million payoff and went to live in Canada and let the whole thing go, then, what we said to this point would not be wrong. It would just be, I don't think that's going to happen, obviously, but what we've said to this point is not incorrect. We haven't really gotten anything wrong. We've taken a leading position on this, and we hope that others will at the very least, we hope that people will examine our work. But when people ignore it, when they just, don't want to touch it because it's uncomfortable or could damage their image or whatever, then, that kind of says everything.
And one thing I would just throw in there, as my mentor, Ben Dupuy, used to always say, you can't really judge somebody until they're 6 feet under the ground. So, we don't know how it will all play out. And, as Fidel always said, history will absolve me. But in the case of the movement that Cherizier is leading, and that they're trying to vilify so much, and sure, nothing is pure, as Lenin said, not to quote everybody in the universe, but there's no such thing as a pure social revolution. They're all, contradictory and messy and have elements. And two examples of that, really, both of them failed revolutions, are the Cacos in 1915 that emerged. I talked about this in my Democracy Now! Interview at the beginning of April, who were a sort of a force of rural ruffians, hooligans who committed all kinds of acts of violence, overthrowing governments on behalf of the northern Grandons who would come into the city and do business with the comprador bourgeoisie's president. I have a good friend in the Haitian community, Ray LaForest, who was telling me about a great uncle or something of his who was walking across the Champ de Mars, who was shot. 3 guys were shot by Cacos because they were mulattoes, and so they were sort of innocent people. But it doesn't diminish the Cacos' importance as an anti-imperialist force like Sandino, who fought with Charmant Perrault against the U.S. Marine intervention. So that's one example. And the other one, which I also, and I've mentioned it to Dan, and I haven't done a deep dive into it, but are the Mau Mau in the mid-1950s in Kenya, which were often people drawn, the British used a lot of Kenyans in the Second World War, and a lot of them thought, well, now we're going to get paid back for our service after the war, and they weren't. And they rose up when they tried to do a settler colonial project in Kenya. And if you read some of the British accounts of this, they're portrayed as a completely criminal movement, that they were just criminal. There was nothing patriotic, what was called the Land and Freedom Movement. And this is another example. That too was crushed. The Mau Mau were defeated just like the Cacos were. Maybe Vivre Ensemble will be defeated, but maybe it can prevail. And I hope it can, because right now the empire is overextended, as we know, in Ukraine and Yemen and Israel, Palestine, around the globe. It is got fires burning everywhere, and hopefully this time Haiti can achieve its second social revolution.
Indeed. Now, one of maybe the key figure in Haiti, of which there are many, but the key figure in Haiti who has done everything possible to create confusion, to disrupt, to destabilize, to create chaos is not barbecue, as the Western media would have you believe, but is a figure that is well known in Haiti and is now widely sort of reviled, but is not known in the United States so much. And this is the guy who, if the media was honest, he would be considered, the bad guy in Haiti. And so we did a kind of short profile on him, on some of what he's been up to. And I've interviewed him a few times. Kim has known him for years. And his name is Pierre Esperance. And there is Pierre Esperance. He is the head of the Haitian National Network for Defense of Human Rights, commonly known by its acronym, the RNDDH. And so basically, we're going to show just a little bit of what he's done to hurt people.
Head of Haiti's foremost human rights group, the National Network for the Defense of Human Rights, known by its acronym RNDDH. He says the piece was ordered by Ariel Henry's PHTK party.
The agreement between some member of G9 and G people, PHTK and Ariel government behind that.
Esperance.
Okay, let's just quickly parse that statement. So he says that Vivre Ensemble, the agreement between the G9 and the JPEP, was ordered by Ariel Henry and the PHTK government that existed at the time. That organization, Vivre Ensemble, was the group that basically expelled Ariel Henry. So this is the equivalent of like Trump Russia, or the most moronic, inane conspiracy theory that you can think of. And this guy is the principal agent of U.S. empire, of soft power in Haiti. And this is the stuff that he says, and he's quoted in the New York Times. He gets he writes op-eds in foreign policy and big journals, and he testifies in Congress here in Washington. And he's tight with congressmen. And he's tight with even left-wing journalists and think tankers. And so this just shows how intellectually, and morally corrupt the whole system is. And this guy, as you see, there he is, younger. He's been around. He's been doing this for decades.
This is a longtime close ally of the U.S. Embassy and political figures in Washington. His organization is funded by the National Endowment for Democracy.
There he is with what's his name? What's that congressman? Former congressman.
Right, from Ohio. Andy
Levin. Andy Levin, who I actually ran into at he's from Michigan, but I ran into Andy Levin not long after a trip to Haiti, our November 2022 trip to Haiti. I ran into Andy Levin at Whole Foods here in Washington, near the Capitol. And I was polite to him, and I asked him, if he'd be. I told him I just returned from Haiti. I've been doing a lot of reporting there. Have a documentary we just released, and I think it would be really helpful or important to maybe brief him on what we know. And he just basically laughed in my face and walked away. And so, it was inside Whole Foods, so I wasn't going to confront him. But it just kind of said everything, that this guy is not interested in what's actually going on. He's just an agent of empire, a kind of mid-level agent of empire doing what he's supposed to do. And so there's Andy Levin, and he actually got mad at me for filming, even though, of course, it's perfectly legal here.
His stand on Palestine?
Yeah, right. You're right. I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a safe bet that he's a Zionist.
Yeah.
And here, so Pierre Esperance and his group, they're funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, and basically one of the key CIA cutouts here in Washington that funds political parties and destabilization plots all over the world. And our friend Travis Ross, who is a full-time school teacher and father, but also finds time to do investigative journalism, he found that the NED had actually scrubbed information about its payments to Pierre Esperance's RNDDH from its website. But, he caught it, and he published that with Haiti Liberté. So, you can see they're trying to cover their tracks.
NED's website has been scrubbed of this information. However, an archived version shows it took $65,000 just in 2021. In the lead up to the 2004 coup against President Jean-Bertrand.
So here we're going to see Pierre Esperance is involved in everything going on now, but also in the 2004 coup against the democratically elected president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. He played a key role in manufacturing disinformation that led to his ouster.
And Aristide, he fabricated what became known as the Lasserie Massacre. 14 years later, in 2018, he used the same tactic to spin a battle between two armed groups into what is now known as the La Saline Massacre.
I'm Richard Karn.
Oh man, just torture. Okay, we'll be get rid of that for a second. I'm gonna play it over here. So,
I'll opine on that. Yeah. So and
we're back. We're back. Okay.
It says report claimed without evidence that Jimmy Cherizier was the mastermind and that he planned it in his house with this man, Fednel Montchéry.
Okay, so I think we shouldn't go too deep into the weeds about Esperance, and you probably get a sense of what a slimy character he is. He actually got this guy under house arrest, who's hiding. He got someone else we know named Charleson Sanon to. He got him thrown in jail for 10 years for nothing. So just a really shady character.
Tried to use him as say he was a child soldier for a senator, Joseph Lambert, and two senators, or one was a senator, one was a deputy, Eddie Zeni in Jacmel, tried to say that Sherrilson was his child soldier, tricked Sherrilson into signing a confession. Sherrilson thought he was signing papers to go to the U.S. and ended up spending 10 years in jail. Anyway, terrible story, real tragedy. Sherrilson is a very sharp, interesting young man. And yeah, Pierre Esperance basically destroyed his life.
Mm-hmm. He took away 10 years of his life.
10 years.
Yeah. So I think this is kind of an important clip from Cherizier right here. So let's go back to it. Let's see. Oops. There we go. So right here, he's basically discussing, who's actually responsible for the situation in Haiti. You have Ariel Henry basically asking for an armed intervention. So
insécurité ça. Bon, par exemple, avant, pour 7 février, pour Ariel Henry qui arrive sur le pouvoir, il voyait comme un paquet de groupes armés, il fait une attaque un paquet de l'autre groupe armé. Maintenant, il est sur le pouvoir, il n'est pas voyer comme chaque jour, il groupe armé ça. Mais le groupe armé, ça a besoin de vivre. Il a besoin d'occuper et membres. Il a besoin d'acheter ça, il a besoin d'acheter munitions. Maintenant, il va continuer à faire mauvais actes qu'on fait. Maintenant, qui est-ce qui est plus responsable? Monde qui gagne des amis ou bien l'État avec oligarchie?
So it's the system. I mean, he's saying it's the system. It's not. It's you can't blame the poor people living in the streets. For sake of time, you have a hard out at 2 in half an hour, Kim, right? So
correct, yeah.
So I think for sake of time, let's kind of skip ahead to, I mean, there's the base app section. I don't know. Do you want
to? The base app, maybe, yeah, we can just give a taste of that so people can have some kind of notion of it.
Okay, so base app, there's Guy Philippe and base app. Okay, so we managed to, all right, hold on.
His potential strength lies in another armed force, the Brigade for Surveillance of Protected Areas, or BASAP, founded by the late President Jovenel Moïse in 2017 as a force of some 300 armed park rangers. The group came to national prominence in 2023 after defending workers building a canal near the northeastern town of Guanaman from intimidation by Dominican Republic forces. The canal and BASAP quickly became symbols of national pride for Haitians. The group has grown to over 15,000 members, perhaps far more. Although many are unarmed and unpaid, they are acquiring guns rapidly. What they lack in weapons, they make up for in spirit. In Cap Haitian, we meet with the local BASAP force.
BASAP décidé pour accompagner le peuple là, non seulement dans les revendications et dans l'île qui a mené. Par exemple, depuis le canal, nous doté canal Fiaté que nous gagnons qui trouve loin maintenant. Et ça a vraiment motivé nous, les nous regarder comment la population lui-même pas gain parce que l'État pas prendre en charge, c'est eux-mêmes qui décident de faire quelques bagages pour tête yo. Les nous te fin garder nous l'État lui-même li négligé yo face à l'armée dominicaine qui a pressé yo parce que ont besoin faire un canal et puis nous-mêmes BASAP nous sommes obligés d'accompagner la population parce que toute sa population gagne comme revendication BASAP a pas accompagné. Non seulement l'île ni revendication.
With the implied threat of BASAP's power, Guy Philippe proposed.
Okay.
So
let me give a wrap up of this. So, Vivre Ensemble, Cherizier's movement, is principally in what is called in Haiti the Republic of Port-au-Prince, which is Port-au-Prince and its surrounding areas as far out as Canaran and Jerusalem to the north, maybe as far south as Gressier in the south. So this is where his armed groups are more or less concentrated, or the armed groups in the Viva Sum alliance. I shouldn't say his, because he doesn't have control. It's really a sort of United Nations of armed groups. Each one has their autonomy and control in their area. He's the most visible voice. But in the countryside, it's the BASAP. And the fellow you see at the beginning is a guy called Guy Philippe, who led, with U.S. support, the overthrow of Aristide, or the armed wing of the groups that brought the overthrow of Aristide in 2004. He was a former soldier and then turned policeman. And but after the coup of February 29th, 2004, he was more or less kicked to the curb, retreated into the countryside in the south where he's from, ended up being charged with drug trafficking and money laundering by the U.S., got captured in 2016 and spent 7 years in jail, just coming back to Haiti in November. But he's come back. He's a very articulate spokesperson, very charismatic and eloquent in his speeches, and very anti-imperialist and very bitter against the U.S. and denouncing them. Ironically, Aristide's party, the Lavalasse family, has gone the other way and is totally into this U.S. concocted council, is a leading member of it, in particular a guy called Leslie Voltaire, who stands as the Lavalasse, family Lavalasse representative on it. And so they're totally down with the U.S. intervention via the Kenyan proxies. And so the BASAP is really this primarily rural force, which is doing all sorts of projects in the countryside, not just of training troops and people like you see in these video clips, but even doing other infrastructure work. We're going to be publishing something in Haiti Liberté shortly about that, similar to the canal that was built in the northeast of the country, which is basically a canal off the Massacre River up by the town of Wanamant, which is irrigating one of the most fertile plains, the Maraburu Plain, in the northeast of Haiti. So that is what the BASAP is, but they more or less are moving in a parallel and up until now allied role, de facto, not formally, role with Cherizier's movement. So these are the two sort of armed movements which exist. BASAP has fallen from the headlines a little bit since February 7th, when 5 of their agents were ambushed and machine gun killed by the Haitian National Police in Port-au-Prince. So they've sort of retreated a little bit. There appears to be a division between the leader of the BASAP and Guy Philippe now, to some extent, but nothing open, nothing major. But in any case, that's the story of BASAP and the Vivre Ensemble.
Okay. So, let's go to let's see. We have another.
Your kids have to stop brushing.
We have more
their
ads.
teeth.
Okay, stop brushing your teeth, kids. According to these advertisements. Let's we'll skip
Play
ahead.
that in the background.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's all right. I got it. We're back.
You got it. Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now we're back. We're up to early February of 2024, when right before kind of everything kicked off, Kim and I took another trip down there. We didn't have any inside information that things were about to kick off, but we just headed down there. So
arriving February 8th.
Right. So you know what? I think let's go to the funeral. Why don't we do that? So basically, Cherizier talks about how Vivre Ensemble had sort of fallen apart to a degree, but then, and that's kind of the point it was at right now. It was sort of a low point for Vivre Ensemble. Some of the groups that had made alliances were now fighting again. And so we kind of see a portrait of inside his Delma, Lower Delma neighborhood of what that actually meant.
Politically, but emotionally, we attended the funeral of a young man named Abinado, killed in the battles with former ally Crochet du Feu.
Parti ça est parti qui est toujours plus difficile pour mener. Et à chaque fois, je viens camper là pour regarder maman, papa, madame, petit frère qui a mené la bataille ça. Et ma font une historicité de comment vous ça arrivé là. Au commencement, et nous avons décidé pour nous venir avec Badelma et notre vision, de façon pour te permettre que nous ne pas faire ça au fléau la caille et pour qui permettre que nous pas courir quitter caille pour nous venir faire ça au fléau. Et pour mener, moi-même pour balle dans pour ça déjà marqué mourir et il y a plusieurs monsieur qui prend balle déjà et il y a plusieurs qui viennent en mourir. Mais je dis à poser une question. Si tout le monde lève courir quitter le pays à côté de nous aller, nous ne sommes pas capables de quitter le pays. Quand même, il faut que nous quitter la caillou. Là, c'est la nourriture. En pile, nous là, nous qui caille. En pile, nous, c'est là, nous fête. Nous ne pouvons pas choisir les bons matin. On groupe n'est choisi que pour nous parler dans la zone nous. Parce que nous des hommes, nous choisissons de mettre nous dehors la caillou. Quand un paquet de jeunes garçons qui font un paquet de sacrifices. Mon sur les réseaux sociaux, mélangé à journalistes, détruit dans les bandits, dans les gangs. Mais il y a une fierté toujours bien, mélangé à tristesse, mais chacun de nous monsieur mourir. C'est parce que nous vivons qu'un béout là. Nous vivons qu'un béout là dans le sens que nous pas jamais fait ça qui passe pour nous vivre, nous pas jamais fait ça qui passe pour nous qu'un bazar. Un moment difficile. Et on continue comme parce que l'objectif n'est que c'est mettre le monde dehors d'Elma 2, c'est mettre le monde dehors d'Elma 4 et pour mettre nous dehors d'Elma 6 pour prendre toute zone ça. Ça c'est mission politicien va au faire et nous-mêmes nous pas aucun côté nous pour aller. C'est là n'a prêté. Si c'est là n'a prêté nous pas aucun côté pour nous aller, nous obligés de continuer comme pour carrer pour la caille. Encore une fois et bah il y a un pile tristesse l'encan, pas de connect comme ça, pas de force dans ça, parce que dans l'antenne de non va tout. Et là, Benado dit chef, il va prendre monsieur à terre, il dit fou mais, oh allez, là pas, oh, à passer monsieur là. Et puis, on 2-3 minutes et puis on descend pas mal de l'eau pour nous. Pendant mon bambal de plein puis de rafale balio, après moi je viens en cadavre là c'est, Benado prend balle tête. On s'assied dans l'air, on est capable tout. On a l'autre petit qui prend un coup. Dieu merci, il va mourir. La chance pour Abelado et lui-même. Et nous commençons à leur passer à dire que qui réel. Tout naît, tout vit, tout périt. Tout le monde a mort un jour quand même. Nous-mêmes qui l'avons bien pour mourir. Nous faisons un jour, nous vivons, et puis après un jour pour nous mourir. Mon courage va exister parce que je ne peux pas façon de dire maman Abelado courage. Je ne peux pas dire frère courage, famille courage. Par contre, façon, je peux dire, il y a un petit courage parce que je ne suis pas un soldat, je suis un petit. Tout ce que je suis un petit, je ne suis pas une façon de dire courage. Je seulement dit nous, avec nous mourir pour ça. Je connais fort pour nous, pour nous pas mettre maman dehors dans Kaili. Nous, chacun qui a petit, nous avons continué jusqu'à dernier coup de sang. Parce que nous ne pouvons pas quitter le monde, mettre nous dehors. Merci.
La confiance n'a triomphé, la confiance jusqu'à la fin. Bon Dieu m'a ouvert chemin. La confiance, on va marcher. Coûte que coûte, persévérer. Jésus-Christ, c'est nos promesses.
Cherizier gives his version of a 21-gun salute.
Oh man, that's just
yeah. You've been watching Obama ads?
no. They're
No,
trying
I'm
to
kidding.
force.
Yeah,
They're trying
I'm
to.
kidding. Yeah,
They're
right.
trying to undo the programming. So, I mean, I think that scene really speaks volume, speaks for itself. You see that this is not what the media says. This is just a bunch of gangsters who are terrorizing the neighborhood, and this is an armed group that has roots in its neighborhood, that's defending its neighborhood.
Yeah.
That if they did not use their arms, if they didn't have them and be willing to defend themselves, then they'd be driven out of there. And that's really what this is about.
And if I can just add in, Dan, I mean, the importance that Cherizier gives to honoring his neighbors, his people, that funeral costs a good bit of money. They a funeral home came in, they set up that tent, they set up all of the urns and chairs and the casket and all of that. That costs a lot of money they need desperately in their fight for survival, because the Cherizier and his organization there called Another Vision, they pay for every marriage, every funeral, every for the swimming pool you saw, for the school. I mean, they're getting support from diaspora people who were living in Lower Delma, who now are maybe in Canada or the US or France or Latin America somewhere. But his organization is having to take all of that on. So it's not just fighting. It's also taking care of the community, carrying out the funerals, and honoring the people killed.
Yeah, so we have about less than 15 minutes. I'm just trying to kind of decide what the most key moments are. Maybe instead of showing the Solino thing, we can talk about. I mean, so people are going to have to watch the documentary themselves. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go into every detail that I would like. But one of the things you see here is how so there's a neighborhood called Solino that has been now the situation has become more complicated, but at that time in February had been attacked by Bel Air, with which Cherizier had made peace, and that's what you see here. This guy, basically discussing how his neighborhood had his business was burned in his home, and so he Cherizier discusses his approach. In the next scene, you'll see Cherizier discuss his approach to Solino, to basically these conflicts between the different neighborhoods, whether one is simply an aggressor and the other the victim, or if there's if it's something more complicated. And you can see his place is burned behind him, and you'll see now more destruction and fire. There's a burning tire there, but you can see the whole street is torn up as a result of these attacks. So here is where Cherizier discusses kind of his ideological approach to this, which I do think is important.
Discours pa nou, c'est ouais tout ghetto, tout quartier populaire côté qui gen moun qui pi mal yo ap viv yo, pour toute zone ça yo met tête yo ensemble. Et m'pa essayer prendre parti ni pour Solino, à savoir que m'voyer mon azam goumen pour Solino, ni tout m'pa prendre parti pour moun qui attaquer Solino yo. Mais moi essayer parler avec deux camps yo, quel était monsieur qui attaquer Solino yo, quel était monsieur qui dans Solino, comment nous capable ensemble mettre tête nous et que pour nous faire une bataille et contre moun qui mette nous dans ça nous ya, mais c'est pas pour nous bataille contre propre tête nous. Parce que monsieur Kapata qui Solino yo, quand c'est côté yo a vivre yo, gen même problème avec moun Solino. Si moun pas à l'école, moun pas à manger, gen insécurité, l'état pas présent. Qui intérêt nous gagne pendant nous gagne même problème, pendant que nous victimes de même l'état, de même oligarques et puis pour ça entre nous n'a goumé. Moi-même prioriser dialogue entre moun Solino avec monsieur Kapata yo. Même j'ai essayé de joindre la paix entre la Saline et Kouave Jérémy, entre cracher fait avec moi-même. J'ai toujours essayé par la mission pour dire, on campe pour ça, pour que ça nous pas mettre tête nous ensemble pour nous contre vrai ennemi nous.
So you see, he's basically he's not going to take one side or the other in these fights. You know, for one thing, he doesn't have the power to do so. He doesn't have state power. He's trying to unite people. And so he's trying to defend his first goal is to defend the sovereignty in his neighborhood that they've established, and then try to be a peacemaker between the neighborhoods and play a diplomatic role. And so, you know, he's attacked for that, ironically, but at the same time, this is what's key. This is back in Lower Delma in Cherizier's neighborhood. You'll see he actually takes care of people who have fled him. So wow. Please, Obama, this is just torture. He's actually trying to help people. He's basically giving these women shelter. So, you know, I'm not going to play all this. You can go back and watch it in the documentary. But not only is he giving these people shelter, people who have fled, but he's also creating a safe area for market vendors. A lot of people rely in Port-au-Prince. They sell their wares in informal markets on the streets. And because of all this fighting, those people have been displaced. They can't sell their wares. So he has actually taken literally hundreds of people who they have come to his area. They've fled and just said, yeah, you can set up shop here and you'll be safe. We'll protect you. And he doesn't tax them. He doesn't, you know, do anything to take money from them. He just simply protects them for the good of the country.
Clean garbage off of the streets. Merchants displaced from La Saline's Quadibosal market and Solino's Payon market have also found safe haven under Cherizier's watch. Most were reluctant to talk to us, afraid for their safety. One man agreed to speak on the condition that he covered his face.
Nous pas besoin.
Simon, c'est quand on prend bonne bagarre. Oui, quand on prend bonne bagarre.
Bon, bonne bagarre, moi tout côté.
Non, mais on prend bonne dans le marché payant.
Oui, on prend bonne dans le marché payant tout.
Et pour qui ça on parle de là?
Ah mais parce que il mettait bandit pour craser, il crasait pays, lui même avec toute colonne il crasait pays.
Qui ça?
L'aime nous ça et puis même si n'importe bagaille qui arrive mon là, il pas jamais dire rien. C'est lui mettait bandit, nous pas besoin.
Qui le bandit ou attaquer?
Ah toute la nuit nous passer pas gain dormir. C'est pourri n'a pourri.
Nous perdons marchandises.
Nous perdons marchandises, nous perdons bagaille dans caille, nous courir derrière nous. C'est là nous venons nous petits souffles. Même l'entendez à parler de barbecue bon bagaille. Barbecue bon bagaille. C'est lui qui nous petits souffles qui fait nous marcher là.
So bandit ou pas plus attaquer là.
Non, barbecue bon bagaille. Nous pas besoin Ariel.
Pour qui ça les bon bagaille?
Parce qu'elle protège nous et parce qu'elle nous-mêmes. Tout le monde qui parle là, il n'y a pas de monde qui attaqué, il n'y a pas de monde qui courir. C'est parce que s'il te fait nous mal, nous avons dit ça, mais il va faire nous mal. C'est bon bagaille lié. Mais Ariel, nous pas besoin Ariel. Ok, on est allé. Oui, voilà, les doigts aller à souhait même.
Ok, à la manito, 6-7,
Si on devait prendre Kounia, nous t'avons content. Nous tout parlé là, nous sauver. Ok. Merci, mon cher. Oui. Ok. À Marielle, vive Babé. À Marielle encore, vive Babé. Ouais. Vive
Despite
Okay, so before we get interrupted by Obama again,
or Biden. Yeah.
or
And
Biden.
what is interesting in all that too is, and we were surprised. We that was totally unsolicited. We had no idea that was going to be coming out when we went out. We said, let's just go see what's happening out in the marketplace, which is always a good place to take the temperature, put in the thermometer to find out what the people are thinking. And that's what we found. But later we learned, and right now what's going on is a battle really between Cherizier and Solino. It turns out that, in fact, Cherizier was sending troops. He sent 15 of his soldiers over to help defend Solino.
This is just to clarify. This is the neighborhood that he was trying to was under attack, and Cherizier had an official policy of non-intervention and was trying to just mediate and be diplomatic between the two neighborhoods. But as we later found out, in fact, Cherizier had secretly sent men to defend it. As
right, and this is because he was in an alliance with his longtime Bel Air foe, a guy called Kempes Sanon, and so he didn't want to endanger that truce, that peace that he had with Kempes. So he was basically giving Solino, who he used to live in Solino, he had a lot of ties to Solino. Solino has a lot of former cops. And one cop in particular, a guy called Lionel Dumais, known as Foss, was a good friend of his. So he gave soldiers to help defend Solino against Kempes's attack on the sly. But then after February 29th, and the Vivre Ensemble beginning to struggle with the police and struggling to make this revolution happen and stop the U.S. from putting in place its presidential council and Garrick Coney, he had sent a team up to go raid the Soja Bank, which is one of the bourgeoisie's banks, up at the top of the hill. And they were ambushed by these cops of Solino. And one of his guys was killed on one day and another the next. So we lost 2 soldiers to this sort of treacherous ambush carried out by the Solino cops. And this began basically a war between Solino and Cherizier. And he just made a rather 2 long videos, about 10 minutes each, on Monday, where he explained this whole backstory and said, you ambushed us. And then he said they were taking their armored car and making incursions, cops from that Solino, into Lower Delma and attacking Lower Delma. So they set an ambush on Monday for one of the cars, these armored cars, and they killed 3 of the cops. 2 died at the scene and 1 cop died later. And he explained this whole backstory. So now he's at war with Solino, essentially because the cops are working with the government in the U.S. to fight the Vivre Ensemble. So that is the story of Solino in a nutshell. So you can see
when I learned about
what you end up having is this sort of civil war-like changing of alliances happening in Haiti right now.
Okay. Well, I think with that, it is now 1:59. We have seconds left until Kim has to depart. So I think we're going to leave it there. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Please share this around, like, comment. And again, we appreciate any support. You can give through buymeacoffee.com/uncaptured or patreon.com/uncaptured or super chats, any of it. So thank you all for tuning in. And
the Haiti Liberté site also has HaitiLiberté.com, Liberty with an E on the end. Liberté.com also has a little donate button on it too.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining in, and make sure to watch the documentary in full, Haiti Intervention versus Revolution.
Thank you, Dan.